Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. We recently got some new leaks and rumors from a very credible source that unfortunately does not make Call of Duty look very good. It kind of exposes some secrets behind what goes on between the studios. We've known for a while now that when you have three studios, Sledgehammer, Treyarch, and Infinity Ward, cycling in and out every single year to make a new COD game, there's going to be a certain level of competition between these studios, with them trying to one-up each other on a pretty consistent basis. And this new information is, like I said, not painting COD in the best light. So this initial quote from InfoCOD ES ends up saying, we're now in February, which means it's been almost 2 months since Infinity Ward says we hope to talk about it soon regarding Modern Warfare 4, but we don't really know what soon means. I can't stand that word, quite frankly. Hope quotes this and says, they had to stop making a Modern Warfare 2022 clone and start making an actual Call of Duty game for once. That's why it's taking so long. So Hope is actually insinuating here that part of the reason we haven't seen anything from Modern Warfare 4 yet is because they saw the feedback to a lot of the leaks and rumors that said Modern Warfare 4 was going to be very similar to Modern Warfare 2022 in a lot of honestly kind of concerning ways, and they're making adjustments because of that. They are shifting around maybe some design elements of the game, and so they haven't really revealed anything up until this point. I've said on record a few times previously, I do think that Modern Warfare 4 is going to have a much earlier marketing schedule and release and reveal schedule than what we've seen before, for a couple of reasons. We've got GTA 6, which again they just confirmed is launching in November. If COD launches anywhere close to that, that's going to be a problem. So I would not be surprised if COD launches, a month or two earlier than usual. But also just the sentiment around COD right now, it's not great. There's not a lot of hype in the franchise. The earlier you market and get attention on MW4, the more eyes you have on Call of Duty as a whole. So wouldn't be surprised if we see an earlier schedule as far as that goes. But then Hope goes on to respond to a few different things here that, as mentioned, is not a great look for Call of Duty. This person responds and says they've been seething while analyzing MW3 gameplay too, because obviously Modern Warfare 3 had a really good player sentiment and reception, even though it wasn't as hyped as MW2 was at any point in its lifespan. Players genuinely and generally enjoyed MW3, and we saw that with the retention and everything throughout the year. Hope basically goes on to say, yeah, they weren't happy about it. This person asks for an example here, and Hope responds and says they literally were completely demoralized and had multiple meetings with upper management before season launches to make changes to the game because people were complaining. So they had to stop what they were doing entirely and readjust things entirely because of so much negative feedback on Modern Warfare 2 post-launch, which obviously we saw the launch of MW2 was so hyped, had so much attention, so many eyes on it, and then as the seasons rolled out, season 1, 2, 3, 4, it just kept going worse and worse and worse, and the player count just kept dropping and dropping and dropping, which was not a good look at all for the first game of the new era of COD. And then of course we know history here led into MW3, which was underhyped because of the reaction to MW2, and MW3 was basically a whole game that was meant to do everything MW2 was supposed to do, just a complete 180 there basically. This person asks Hope, says, amazing how Sledgehammer Games is basically the definition of making the best out of a bad situation, or didn't really ask, but gave that statement. And Hope says, I've heard situations of Infinity Ward basically refusing to finish work on Modern Warfare 3 because criticism hurt our feelings. I don't know if that's the exact way it was phrased, but you get the point there. So Sledgehammer had a lot to deal with, on top of obviously them having to kind of scrap together and piece together a game in like 16 months dev time, which was super minimal compared to what the other recent games were getting. So Sledge just gets dealt bad cards and they have to make the most out of it, which they've done several times now, I think to a pretty good degree, which is also why I'm pretty excited and pretty interested in COD 2027, because Sledge is finally going to have a full regular dev cycle, a full 3+ years to work on this game and to have it perfected. And I think there's a lot of potential there given what they've been able to make out of Vanguard being a rough situation. Even though the era and the theme was not good, I think the gameplay wasn't too bad. Obviously MW3 going over pretty well despite the lack of hype. Like, they've proven they can make things work and they know what they're doing. They just haven't really been dealt great cards. This also doesn't help either when Infinity Ward just stopped working on DMZ2 for Modern Warfare 3 that would have taken it out of beta and launched with a bunch of new features that would then force Treyarch to come in and do Modern Warfare Zombies on Urzikstan instead. This is the first major like info drop here that I think really paints COD in a bad light. Infinity Ward, as we know, the DMZ support for MW2, despite the mode being that new fresh thing that they clearly worked for, a big launch, a lot of attention, like it was developed for multiple years. That was their big thing for that year. It started off well, they had consistent updates, and then those updates kind of became more infrequent and less common as time went on, and then they just abandoned it, of course. MW2 DMZ did not exist beyond MW2, which you look at it now and it's like, boy, that's a miss. If they would have kept supporting this beyond MW2, they really could have had something special, as you've seen the extraction shooter genre really skyrocket more and more, especially with like arc raiders and stuff. Another competitor in the mix there could have been really, really good for COD. But then also you have Modern Warfare Zombies, which clearly wasn't like the most innovative mode ever, because it was clearly reminiscent of DMZ in a ton of ways, and it was just zombies on the Warzone map we were already playing. So definitely not a mode that was like a multi-year project by any means compared to something like DMZ. So that was a pretty surprising bit of information here. Stanley responds and says, so Infinity Ward is the reason that Modern Warfare Zombies even exists in the first place. Hope says, yeah, Treyarch were saving Outbreak 2.0 for Black Ops 6 with Liberty Falls, and that's why in Cold War, Intel had all that stuff, had the big walls around West Virginia, and it's absent then in Black Ops 6. It was going to be the out of bounds there. Then Hope follows up and says, they didn't just make a bunch of round-based maps be right next to each other because they wanted to. It was because they were in the early development on Liberty Falls Outbreak, and then had to pivot because you can't do something like that back to back. And it's also why Modern Warfare Zombies used a ton of DMZ assets. So this basically just paints COD in this way of the dev studios are not getting along, especially when there's these rough time frames where there's quick turnaround on things like Modern Warfare 3 because the predecessor didn't do that well. When there is a ton of negative feedback, certain dev studios like Infinity Ward seems to take that a bit more personally and isn't always on board with some of that feedback. And we saw, definitely fewer reactions to community feedback during MW2 versus definitely MW3 than like even BO6 and BO7 so far. It really seems like there's been a major talking point behind closed doors with all the COD studios like, hey, we got to start, reacting to this feedback a little bit more timely here. And so that is a major shift there. Then having full-on support for major modes completely scrapped, basically, and then having to fill in the gaps with a makeshift mode that's a hybrid of two different things, all because the dev studios weren't getting along. And I don't imagine there's a situation where on a daily basis, every single interaction between Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer and Raven, and then all the other support studios, Beanox, High Moon, etc. I don't think it's all sunshine and rainbows. If everyone was agreeing on every single thing, you'd have probably a very weird situation. There needs to be, some discussion and disagreements to have things progress. And it's like, hey, we should do this. And one person says, I don't think that's going to go over well. Then it's this back and forth of, okay, what are the pros here? What are the cons? It's how you end up with the best possible product. But it seems like in this case, some of these disagreements and some of these discussions led to us as players getting the negative impact on it rather than necessarily the studios being able to resolve things. So this was an interesting bit of information here from Hope in this thread, revealing and kind of exposing some ugly secrets about the inner workings of Call of Duty development and what might go on in collaboration meetings with the different studios here. That said, that is going to wrap things up for this one. If you guys enjoyed the video, a like rating is always seriously appreciated. It's a great way to help grow the channel. And if you're new to the channel, you want to stay in the know for all things going on in COD, no better place than right here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.